Back. So I want to talk about how do you get authority and how do you use it here, right? So this is how all the modules are going to go. Everyone's going to notice this. So the first one, we're going to get a big kind of like step out and really understand this concept, right? We're going to detach from it. We're going to understand it. Why does it work? How does it work? Some examples. And then the second part of each trigger, we're going to talk about how do you use it, right? How do you use it with social life? How do you use it with your sex life? And how do you use it in business, right? Those are the three big ones. Anyone have any other big one in their life that's important to them? Usually for guys, it's sex life, social life, financial life, right? Those are the big three. So that's what we're going to do here. So the $1,000,000 question, of course, is how the fuck do you get authority for yourself and how you use it, right? Especially if this is the most important thing to remember, okay? Everyone has their own construct of this hierarchy in their mind, okay? So you have your own also. You have your own also, and right now you're putting yourself somewhere on this hierarchy, okay? And you think everyone else sees you at that same level, okay? Now the truth is, this is all made up, right? Fugazi. It's not real, okay? It's just an idea you have in your head and you're acting according to it. The truth is, what you want to do is understand everyone else is going to have their hierarchy in their mind, okay? But you don't have one for yourself. Okay, don't have one for yourself. One of the things that I thought was really cool from the last Badass Mentor Retreat is one of the guys there said, Jason, one of my favorite things about Jason is that he treats everyone the same. Just treats you fucking cool, right? He's like, I'm a guy, I'm a dental student, right? I have almost no money. I bought some of his products, but he treats me like he's treating his speakers. He's jovial with me, he's joking with me, he's having fun with me. He treats everyone the same. The reason for that is I'm not fucking Mother Teresa, right? I think you guys are well aware of that, right? Might be the opposite. However, I don't keep this thing in my mind. I don't go, oh, you're here, you're there, you're there. I don't have that, okay? Donald Trump, Donald Faison, doesn't matter, okay? Who knows that reference? You know who Donald Faison is? Oh, man, Scrubs, black guy? Oh, yeah. Okay, good. He's in Clueless also. Best role, in my opinion. Anyways, I treat them all the same. Okay, there is no hierarchy, and because I have no hierarchy that I'm projecting, that means I also don't have one for myself. Do you see that? So because I'm not holding people in a certain position, like you're here, you're there, that means I give myself the freedom not to hold myself in anyone's position either. Okay, so I can put myself wherever I want in everyone else's eyes whenever I want. I can be here, I can be here, I can be here, I can move up and down. There's just total freedom with this. So your job is not to unplug people from certain levels of social conditioning and teach them about the authority bias that probably wouldn't benefit you. Okay, your job is to let go of it, understand they're still going to have it, and then knowing that they're still going to have it, use these tools to put yourself at the top. So everything you fucking say hits with fucking impact, right? And it works. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, cool. So very first way to get authority for yourself, it's going to be really profound right now, is you act like it. Okay? Now, I'm not just going to be like, walk like you're the general in the army, right? That's like vague beginner advice you might get from other dating coaches and success coaches out there, okay? About 40 years ago, Jerry Weintraub, who here knows Jerry Weintraub is? If you do, about half of you do, good, okay. So Jerry Weintraub he was a producer, he was a music manager, he took Elvis out on tour, he took Sinatra out on tour, he took John Denver out on tour. He created John Denver. He produced Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. I don't know what he was thinking with 12 and 13. 11 was fantastic. He was a really smart guy. He was a fucking power influencer, all right, at his core. And he was a natural power influencer. So in the 1970s, he'd taken Sinatra out on tour, and he's getting like chummy with Vegas, right? This is like New Vegas that's coming up. And he decides that he wants to do this big Hawaiian luau show in Las Vegas. Now, no one had ever done a Hawaiian show at all before. It was like a brand new idea, and he's like, we're gonna have fucking 10 Hawaiian girls with their fucking grass skirts and their titties and coconuts, right? We're gonna do the whole luau thing. We're gonna do it inside. I don't know if it was the Sands Hotel or whatever it was back then, or Stardust. But there was a TV character that he wanted to get to be the star of the show, and he was dead set on this guy. Now, at the time, no one in Vegas or in TV knew who Jerry Weintraub was, right? He has no authority in their construct but he wants to get to this guy who's at like the biggest TV star at the time, and he wants to talk him into, hey, leave your comfortable job here in New York and come to Vegas to do a Hawaiian luau show with a bunch of Hawaiian bitches with coconuts on their titties, okay? And leave everything you have at home just to do this, okay? That's not like the best proposition ever. A lot of money involved if you could get it, but it's cool, right? So he tries to get in touch with the guy's people, no one calls him back, right? He calls again, no one calls him back. So what does he do? Does he stop? No. He flies to New York. He goes to where the filming place of this guy's show is. He goes backstage, okay? Goes backstage. Before he gets there, though, he looks around and he sees that the actor's office is right there, or excuse me, his door, right? His name's on the door. There's 2 security guards that are in the hallway blocking the entrance to his door. So all that stands between him and the guy he needs to talk to, 2 security guards. What he does is fucking brilliant. He finds a clipboard with some papers on it by itself, all right? So he grabs the clipboard like this, dusts himself off, makes himself look official. He goes up to the 2 security guards and he slaps them on the shoulder with the clipboard and he goes, hey, how's it going, man? They're like, good. And he's like, everything going well here? You happy with your job right now? The guy's like, yeah, like everything's going well. He's like, all right, good. We've been talking about you. We think you're doing a great job. The guy's like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. He's like, yeah, man, keep it up. Walks right by him. Walks right by him, goes into the room, talks to the guy, nails down the deal. Pretty fucking brilliant, right? Guy's a genius, dude. What did he do, though? What did he do? He acted like the authority, right? And this guy here, again, mental heuristic, mental shortcut, isn't asking himself, do I know this guy? Do I recognize his face? Where are his credentials, right? He's not looking for all these little things. He's just like, clipboard, seems official, asking me how my job is doing. He's acting like he's my authority, so I will submit to him, which he totally did, right? It's pretty fucking scary if you think about how like you can mind fuck anyone that easily. Okay? So he acted like it. That's how you act like it. You don't just put your shoulders up and act like you're like, you know, a Marine or whatever, right? There's, in every situation, there's certain things. In that situation, a clipboard is correct, right? Another thing that we do a lot of times is, let's get you guys in a secret, it's just really funny. When I do big events, I usually have 1 security person with me, half because it's smart to have security. There's 300 guys there, things can get rowdy. But the other half is it's like a status symbol, right? So we do it. It's a total, it's a power influence thing, okay? But if there's any point where it's like, I got to get out of there at a certain time because I got to go be filming something in the room or something like that, which happens a lot. So let's say I got to leave by 7:30 after the event is over. And at 7 p.m., that's when it's done. And I get bull rushed right when I'm done. There's 50 guys surrounding me, right? It's hard to get away normally from 50 guys who I want to help and I want to hear the questions, I want to help them and everything. So what we do is, if the security guard comes up to me and he's like, Jason, you got to go at 7:30, it's time, they kind of ignore him, even though he's dressed in like a security guard suit. They still kind of ignore him. They think they can ask questions. But instead what we do is we take this little earbud thing. You guys know that earbud that security guards wear and it wraps around here? It's like Secret Service. You guys know what I'm talking about? So he puts that in his ear, puts it in his pocket, not connected to anything. Okay. Now he comes up to me, says the same thing, and he puts his finger on his ear, and he goes, okay, yeah, Jason, we got to get out of here. They need you right now in the filming. Everyone disperses. It's absurd. And he's like, dude, after that, I started putting it in my ear everywhere I go with the black suit on, and I'll just like, if there's a line for a buffet or something, I'll just walk to the front, I'll be like, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And everyone just clears the fuck out of the way. It's cleared out of the way because it seems like an authority. All right, it's fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. So, what is one technique or one way that you can use this with your social life? All right, with your social life. All right, remember we said we're not gonna be frame freaks, right? You're not trying to control your friends, okay? Instead, you're an influencer. You're a power influencer. Number one way is you want to be the one giving out approval and taking it away. Okay, you are the person giving out approval and the person disapproving. You're the one taking it away. Okay, think about this. Forget people's faces or names. Think about roles. Okay, think about the roles that we play. Think about roles. Who, in what roles have you been conditioned to work for approval and avoid disapproval from the day you were born? What roles have you worked for their approval and avoided their disapproval? This is what you're conditioned, right? Teachers, parents, right? Teachers and parents. They approve of you, they disapprove of you, they give you grades. You work to get better grades. You're working for their approval. You're working for your parents' approval. You're avoiding their disapproval. You don't want to get punished. You spend years and years and years being conditioned for this, right? And then you go out of it as you get older and you realize that 99.9% of the time, these people had zero earned authority and their lives are in far more shambles and disarray than yours is. Who has ever had this realization? Where like as a kid, you're like listening to these people, and then you meet them when you're a little older and your life's like the shit, and you're like, this person, I can't believe I ever listened to them. Their life sucks, right? It's like everyone here, I have a friend who tries to give you like advice with like women or something like that, and you're like, dude, you haven't seen a pussy since last time you were on Pornhub.com. Like, you've gotten laid since Clinton was in office, and you're telling me how to talk to girls, right? Like, we all know someone like that, right? So then as you get older, and it's not parents and teachers, it becomes professionals. That's who you're trained to look for authority from, right? Experts, doctors, judges, people in TVs and movies, even celebrities who just play doctors, we assume they know what they're talking about. George Clooney used to say after ER was out, people would come up to him on the street and ask him for medical advice. He was like, first he was like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? But they subconsciously, they see him as a doctor on TV, and they're like, I know he's not a real doctor, but I assume since he plays one, he probably knows most of the stuff that doctors know. No, he doesn't know shit. Are you guys crazy? People are, okay? But the desired action and the effect is always the same. People are trained to want approval from authorities. Okay, people are trained to want approval from authorities and trained to avoid their disapproval. So when you act this way, you are seen this way. So for instance, one of the greatest things you can do with women, okay, using as approval, disapproval, is you start hiring her and firing her. So now you're taking on the role of her boss, right? You're taking on the role of her boss because who hires her and fires her in her life? Bosses, right? So she brings you a drink, it's done correctly, you go, awesome, you're promoted, right? And then when she doesn't do something you're like, listen, it's just not working out, you're fired. I want you to pack up your stuff, be out of here by 5, right? And you fire her. And then she gets all sad and you're like, all right, listen, you can be rehired, but only, whatever, you just play with it, right? But you're hiring her and you're firing her. You are the authority. My favorite lines, one of my buddies used to always say to girls, whenever he was talking to them and they ever did anything he liked, maybe they were, I don't know, they went bungee jumping. There was something they were afraid of, and they're telling him this whole story about how they overcame their fear, and they mustered up all their courage, and they did it. And they tell this whole story, and he'll look at them and he'll be like, that's awesome, 3 points for Gryffindor. Right, with a smirk on his face. He loved Harry Potter, right? That was like his also little test to see. They know what Harry Potter is, right? Everyone here knows what Gryffindor is, right? 3 points for Gryffindor. It's hilarious, right? And then you start taking away points later. Minus 10 points for Gryffindor. Use teeth with the blowjob. Minus 20 points for Gryffindor, right? And you can go back and forth with it. But that's what he would do. It's funny, right? And she's laughing, but what is he really doing here? He's the authority. Yeah, he's slowly just putting in that role of the authority, right? So what's another way to use it with women? So one of my favorite ones, right? You pace her reality. You show you get women on such a deep level, and you tell her about herself, right? If you can tell a woman more about herself than she can even verbalize, she sees you as the ultimate authority on her life. You know more about her than she does. You call it pacing her reality. So if I say to a girl something like, you have like a pretty high sex drive, don't you? Like when you're with the guy that you're attracted to and comfortable with, like you want to fuck him all the time, don't you? Now, every girl, is that true for most girls? Of course, right? Of course that's true. But because you verbalize it and you say it, she's like, holy shit, this guy knows secrets about me. He knows secrets about me, okay? So this is you demonstrating and understanding her reality, skillfully asserting yourself as an authority on women, right? You be the authority on women. Tell her about herself. Tell her how certain women are. One of the greatest things you can do, especially as you get, when I was like 21, 22, 23, 24, this shit didn't matter. Because most of the girls I was sleeping with at that time were those same ages. But as I get older, I started to realize that like if you can be an authority on like, not even authority, but you can just have an intelligent conversation and have really good ideas and input and advice on their shoes, right? Like understanding women's shoes or handbags and stuff like that, which women think about. Like, I'm pretty sure like half their brain is just dedicated to like shoes and handbags at this point. But if you can understand that, you can talk to them about that, like Christian Louis Vuitton, and like you can just throw out these names and like, a Chanel boy bag, like little things like that. They're like, holy shit, this guy knows more about, because that's what they're interested in. And if you know more about that stuff than they do, again, you're an authority. Right? She's going for a job interview. You're a power influence expert. You teach her one of these power influence triggers that she could use in her interview. You are an authority, right? And all of a sudden, every time you do it, you get jacked up higher and higher and higher on that hierarchy. So one I used to do with the high sex drive one would be like, you have a really high sex drive when you're like attracted and like comfortable with the guy. Of course, when I say attracted and comfortable with the guy you just met, my hand is pointing at myself, right? That's subconscious shit, right? And she'd say, yeah, of course, how do you know that? And I'd be like, have you ever played Cherry Farms before? Cherry Farms, what's that? You don't know Cherry Farms? All right, fine, I'll do it with you. And then I would do Cherry Farms with her. Who here has seen Conversation Crack and knows what I'm talking about? My man right here. Have you ever used it? Does it work pretty well? It's not even fair, dude. So Cherry Farms is very simple. That's how I'd always bring it up. I'll just share it with you guys now. And you at home as well. All right, so Cherry Farms is, you do the whole thing I just said, and Cherry Farms goes like this. So I want you to imagine that you're walking down a street, okay? It's like a pretty afternoon, 70 degrees, it's breezy outside, fall, colored leaves, it's nice out. And you come to this farm. There's a white picket fence between you and the farm, and you can tell it's a cherry farm, just cherries everywhere. But there's this white picket fence between you and the farm. How high is the fence? She'll say 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, whatever. Okay. Whenever she answers, of course. Now, okay. By the way, I'll tell you about this in a second. I want you guys to think about it as I'm doing this. Also, how am I embedding myself as an authority here over her world? Okay. So I'll say, how high is the fence? She tells me, and I go, it's interesting. Okay, let's continue. So now you're on the other side of the fence, and you're actually in the cherry farm. How many cherries are you going to take for yourself to take home? 2, 4, 100. Some girls will say all of them. So if they say a lot of them, I'm just always like, oh, you're trouble, I knew it. Right? You're trouble, I knew it. So they tell me how many it is, and I say, you're trouble, I knew it. And then I'm like, all right, final question. What about the farmer? She's like, what do you mean? What about the farmer? Obviously, you didn't think these cherries were growing by themselves. Like, the farmer comes out of his house, he sees you taking his cherries. How does he react? Right? And she'll say, oh, he's angry and he's screaming, or he doesn't give a shit because he's a weed farmer, so he's smoking weed, he's chill. Right? You'll get all kinds of answers. And then you're like, all right, cool. And then you ask her, do you want to know what all that means about you? She goes, yeah, okay, yeah, I want to know. Girls always love it when guys tell them about themselves. It's one of their favorite topics in the world, of course, is themselves. But this is a really good way to do it and embed it with an attraction thing and with you as the authority. So she goes, what is it? What do I mean? All right, so how high the fence is actually a metaphor for how ambitious you are and how likely you are to achieve your goals. Right? Some girls, they like to say, like, if they see the fence is 10 feet high and it's even higher than they are, then they don't really think they can achieve their goals because they've set them too high. It's not really achievable. Right? Some girls say that it's too low. If it's just 1 feet and they haven't set their goals high enough, they're not really challenging themselves in life. So you said 4 feet, though. That's like the perfect height because you know that something is a challenge, pointing at myself again, right? You know something is a challenge, but you still think that you can get it. Might take a little work, but you can get this if you work for it. Okay? See all this subconscious shit there. It's beautiful, right? Now, no matter what she says, I'm going to say that about the thing. If she said the fence was 8 feet, I'd say girls who've never reached their goals, they say 16 feet, and then the 1 feet. I'm just going to make it seem so it's the same for everybody, okay? So then after that, I'm like, so the cherries are actually one of the most sensual fruits in the world, right? And the cherries are actually a metaphor for sex, right? So however many cherries you actually took is how high your sex drive is, okay? So and let's say she said I took 10 cherries. I'd be like, I've done this with, like, I've had other girls tell me where they've taken like 1 or 2 cherries, and you can tell those are like starfish in bed, like super boring, no sex drive, just lay there like a fucking starfish, like SpongeBob SquarePants, right? Like, I'm glad that's not you, right? So now you're playfully disapproving her, right? I'm glad it's all you as an authority, okay? And I'll say, but you took 10. All right? I've only done this with 3 other girls before. I've actually had this game with them. Most I ever heard, I think, was like 6 or 7 cherries. So like. And she had a high sex drive, so the fact that you said 10 cherries just like makes you think that I'm gonna need, like, you're gonna have me fucking chained to the bed needing Gatorade and shit. Like, you're trouble. Like, I need to be careful with you. Okay? So tons of things going on there. And of course, I'm always gonna frame her as having a really high sex drive, right? So even if every other girl said 100 cherries and she said 10, I'm still gonna tell her that most girls say less. She has a high sex drive. Okay? Because if you tell a girl that's how she is, she's likely to just act that way anyways. And then finally, I go, and the farmer is actually a metaphor for how society looks at you for having such a high sex drive and for being this sexually free. Like, if you're like, he got pissed and I felt bad and I gave him back the cherries, that means you're letting society dictate how you run your sex life, and that's not cool, right? But if she's like, I didn't care what he said, you're like, I took the cherries and I went home, I'd be like, that's awesome, because it shows you don't really care what society thinks. You're like a free, adventurous spirit, and if you see something that you like, you're going to go after it and you're going to get it tonight, right? So that's the whole thing. All right, it's an amazing routine. It's really not fair, as we discussed here. It's really fucking powerful. It's really fucking powerful. But what are you doing there? That whole game, okay, the whole game, that whole thing, all that is is you demonstrating an understanding of her reality. Okay, now granted, you use the game to tell her about herself. You don't actually know anything about her. All you know is that she said she had a medium to high fence, she picked a lot of cherries, and she said, fuck you to the farmer. And then you told her what those things mean about herself. But girls don't care. They're just listening. They're like, holy shit, that is me. Yeah, I do have a high sex drive. I don't care what society thinks. They just agree with it, right? But now you, again, are just the authority. It's so weird. I want you guys, like, if you can, at home, run this with a girl today or tomorrow and just watch how it changes, how her eyes change towards you, where she goes from seeing you here, then you run this thing, and now you moved up the hierarchy. She just looks at you differently. She just responds to you differently. And that's authority. Okay, so what's one technique or way to use it with business and money, right, with financials? You want to wrap yourself in social proof from other authorities. Okay, you want to wrap yourself in social proof from other authorities. You do it online, do it in conversation, and position yourself accordingly. So, for example, if you've ever watched Tony Robbins, look at how he does this with his authority, right? Every story that he tells about what he does for a living isn't about, I do this for these people, I do that for those people. It's, 1990, Andre Agassi has this huge breakdown. They call me. I'm the guy they call. Right? I go to work with Andre Agassi. 2002, Serena Williams breakdown. I'm the guy they call. Right? Hugh Jackman getting ready for X-Men, was nervous, didn't think he could do it. I'm the guy he calls. Okay, he's not using examples from Fred the accountant. Okay, the only examples you're going to hear him use are celebrities, are famous people. Why is that? Because he's wrapping himself in authority. If he talks about how he changed Fred the accountant's life, he is subconsciously putting himself here on other people's hierarchy. Okay, but if he talks about Serena Williams, he's here. Andre Agassi, add to it, he's here. Hugh Jackman, here. You find out DiCaprio even works with him. Now he's up here. Okay? So that's the only examples he's going to use. He talks about Bill Clinton, right? He does the same thing. I do this all the time in my own marketing, right? I always talk about, look at the list of people that I've worked with who come to me for advice. Dan Bilzerian comes to me for advice. 18 million followers on social, whatever. He's creating stuff or he needs help with girls. He calls me, right? I have a Hollywood movie director who's a client of mine, right? New York Times bestselling authors, nightclub owners, and so on and so on. And I talk about that stuff all the time, right? You notice if I use testimonials and emails, they're usually not from just some guy. I always mention their title, and I'm going to make them sound as cool as possible because it makes me sound as cool as possible. I don't say, Billy whatever from Oakland, California. I say Billy, who owns two of the most prominent nightclubs in Oakland, California. Me and him were having a coaching session the other day, and et cetera. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? So you're wrapping yourself in that authority. So you can do that in stories, right? So even if you're not working with prestige clients yet or whatever in your business, you don't have prestige customers, that's okay. Just tell stories. Like, for instance, when I'm up here, instead of me saying, you haven't fully thought something out until you write it down, what did I say? Warren Buffett says you haven't fully thought something out until you write it down. Do you see the difference immediately? Okay? Am I as smart as Warren Buffett? No. Most people aren't, right? But all I have to do is just tell you he said it, and now it's the authority is here with the thing, whatever the piece of advice is. But more importantly, because I'm saying Warren Buffett, it's the law of repetition, you just start to associate all of us at the same level. You start to associate. This is what Ty does. This is what Ty always did. This was his number one tactic is authority, right? Because he'll just tell you this person said that person said this person said this. Every famous person, Helen Keller, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, right? Steven Spielberg. He'll just keep saying these different names until you don't know who the fuck said what, but you know that he's somewhere around their level as well because he keeps saying it. Okay, and you can do this with your friends. You can do this in normal conversation. You do it everywhere, okay? But it gives you authority, and the more you do it, the higher up you go, the more power you have. And here's a bonus tip just to add the value to this, all right? So I want you to start making decisions for yourself, right? Little mini decisions made by the conscious, rational you all day long until it becomes natural for you. So this could be something as small as, let's say you're driving in your neighborhood. Who has ever been driving through their fucking neighborhood, and they see their neighbor up ahead, he's walking his dog, right? And you're driving up and you see you're gonna be passing him in a second, and you're wondering, like, should I wave hello? Is this one of those things where we pretend like we don't see each other? Is he gonna wave to me? And then the last minute I wave back because he waved to me, right? Like, who has ever done anything like that? Thought about, should I wave to him, right? It's so stupid, right? Fuck cares. So what I want you to do, for example, in that instance is, as an authority, as you're practicing this authority to make it a default setting for you, don't wait to see if he's going to say hi or whatever. Just decide, are you going to wave or are you not? And then just do it, right? You're just going to assert yourself first. You're just going to decide for yourself yes or no, and you're just going to go. You're driving, he's up there. Of course I'm going to wave. What's up, man? And I'm on my way. I'm not waiting for someone else to be the authority and tell me how to respond. I'm going to do it myself. All right? But those little mini decisions, those little mini commitments all day long, they add up. After a while, they become who you are. All right? So a couple of important things to know about authority before we finish up this extremely valuable section. Number one, people are terrible at predicting how they're going to react to authority. Okay, Robert Cialdini in Influence talks about this over and over and over again. We're all sitting here in this room, and everyone's jazzed up on authority, and if someone came in here right now and told you to do something, everyone here would be like, fuck off, right? Clearly, right? But a week from now, in a totally different situation, when you're back home, okay, if I ask you now, if someone does that same thing a week from now to you, will you just comply or will you think about it? You're going to be like, fuck no, I'm not going to comply. I'm going to weigh the pros and cons. I'm not just going to be some mindless, obedient bitch, right? And I'd go, that's awesome. But all the research shows that that's wrong. You're terrible at predicting how you're going to respond to authority. You're great here. You think about like if I talk about a nightclub right now and everyone's comfortable in this room, and I'm like, are you going to be impressed by the lights and the tits and the alcohol everywhere? No, of course not tonight. I don't give a fuck about that. But the minute I put you in there, you're going to be affected by it. Okay, because we're terrible at predicting how we're going to respond. The only way to get over that is progressive desensitization, right? So if nightclubs, they make you go haywire because there's so much shit going on, the only way you're going to overcome that is just being there a lot, right? Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes comfort, okay? But understand that. You're terrible at predicting how you're going to respond to influence. So if you know you're going into a situation with someone who usually exerts a lot of authority over you and you don't want them to anymore, don't just be like, I'm a power influence now. It's not going to affect me. Like, understand. Be honest with yourself. You know what? Like, even though now I can sit here and be like, that's not going to affect me, understand it will affect you and be like, you know what? At that moment, I'm going to take a deep breath. And I'm going to make a conscious, rational decision then about how I want to act. But I'm not going to be like, I got it. I don't have to think about it anymore. Kaizen that shit. Okay? Number two, when authority is challenged publicly, it loses a lot of its power. All right, so this is something that's really interesting. Who here knows what the Stanley Milgram experiment is? The Stanford experiment, right? Where they had the people, half of them were prisoners, half of them were guards. All right, that was like the very first study ever done on authority. If you're at home, just Google Stanley Milgram experiment. That was one of the first times they discovered just how powerful authority is. They had totally normal people almost killing or thinking they're almost killing other people simply because an authority was telling them to do it. Really, really interesting shit. But what they found was that, so the general gist of it for everyone who doesn't know. What they did was they took people who told them they were in a study, and they had half the group in a room where there's a glass wall and there's someone who's supposed to be the other half of the study, where one by one the person is hooked up to a chair, and it's an electrical chair. So let's say you're sitting on this side and the other volunteers in the other room. They're hooked up to a chair, it's got electrical voltage, etc. And then there's a researcher behind you in a white coat, and he's telling you what to do. You're a volunteer, the other guy's a volunteer. They're going to ask that guy a question. If he gets it wrong, you shock him, okay? And the person in the white coat, the experimenter, is going to tell you he got it wrong, shock him, right? And every time he gets it wrong, they're going to double up the voltage, right? From 90 to 180 and so on and so forth. So at the start, you're doing it. He says, oh, you got it wrong. Hit the button. Boom. This guy shocks him. He goes, ow, right? And 2 minutes later, he gets another question wrong. Guy tells you, all right, you got to shock him. Okay, boom. Hit him again. He's like, fuck, that hurts. Right? And you turn around and you're like to the experimenter. You're like, dude, I think I'm hurting him. Is this okay? And the guy's like, please continue with the experiment. Which is what they were that's what they were trained to say. What is he doing here, by the way? He's acting like an authority, right? So you're like, well, in your mind literally goes, I'm hurting this guy. I shouldn't be doing this. Yet they continue to do it. All right? Everyone in the study did it. It wasn't like half the group kept shocking the person. Everyone in the study did it. They did it to the point they kept hitting the button where the person on the other end was screaming in pain for it to stop. They're screaming in pain. They're yelling, just kill me already. I want to die. They think they're like frying this person. Okay? What they didn't know is that was an actor on the other side. And they were the only person being tested, just to see how much authority they would obey. How far would they go? They went all the way to a voltage that would have killed the other person. But they did it because they were told to. Okay, they did it because they were told to. Here's what was interesting to me about that study. I already knew that. I already knew people obey authority in those situations. What was interesting to me is that when they were doing this, they did a session of the study where the person's in the chair and they have the voltage, but there's another experimenter in the room with him. He's not pushing buttons, but he's there with him. Okay? He's just the guy off the street also. The white coat is behind him. When there was someone else in the room and you're pushing this button and you see it's hurting the guy and you go, I don't think I should, and this guy's like, please continue with the experiment, this other guy would step up sometimes and be like, dude, don't just listen to him. Like, think about this. This is pretty fucked up. When that happened, they found that this person had like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like almost all the authority was gone in that moment, right? Because he had someone else on his side, because it was publicly challenged. Someone stopped him and said, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Hold on a second here. Okay? So what we know from that, okay, is that when you have a friend with you, someone on your side who's telling you, like, don't just listen to this person, like, think about this for a second, right? It breaks that chain of compliance. It wakes you up from mindless obedience and it brings you back to the rational, conscious you. All right, so how can you use that yourself if you're ever dealing with an authority or whatever? You might not always have a friend there to be like, dude, hold the fuck up. Hold on one second here, okay? But think about the fact that in your mind, imagine there's someone else there who's like your guardian angel and you're doing something you shouldn't. You're like, he's like, hold on there, Jason, one second. Let's think about this. And it'll just stop you to pull back for a second, right? And really ask yourself, should I be doing this? Is this the right thing for me to be doing? Okay, so I just thought that was really fucking interesting. About authority. All right, so in the comment section, here's what I want you to do now. Let us know one way that you plan on using authority in your social life or your sex life now. So let us know in the comment section how you plan on using authority in your social life or your sex life, and I'll see you